Rich, I don't need this microphone.
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you.
So, thank you very much for taking some time out to speak with us
You're
today.
very welcome.
So, how did you decide that you wanted to make the makeup art show career?
I liked horror movies when I was a little kid, like everybody else. I mean, I used to watch all the old Universal horror films when I was a kid, just all the time. If they came on TV, I was watching them. And of course, they were already old when I was a kid too, so they were ancient, but that's how I got started.
One of your first films was Tourist Trap. One of your first films was Tourist Trap.
Yes, it was. Thanks for reminding me.
Sorry, let's start at the beginning, right? So, talk about your IMDb lists you as special masks and makeup.
I did everything.
Everything?
Yeah. Steve Neill and I did all that stuff. In fact, that was a friend of ours, Billy Scudder, was all of those different mannequins in that museum. And yeah, I basically did the makeup on everybody in that, and I think I had to have somebody helping me that was also doing the wardrobe. But yeah, I just kind of did everybody.
So, in the early 80s, you were Lily Tomlin's makeup artist for the film 9 to 5.
That's correct. I actually met her on Incredible Shrinking Woman before that.
Mm-hmm.
And she liked me, and I stayed with her for like 6 years and did all of her stuff for her.
That's what I wanted to ask. Is it the situation where they like you and want to keep bringing you?
Yeah,
on?
they can keep requesting you, and she was, I mean, I really loved Lily. She's a wonderful woman, but she was difficult to work with, so if she found somebody that could stand her, she kept them around. She kind of went through a lot of hairdressers. She was really brutal on hairdressers, but
Yeah, you did a lot of her TV specials.
I did all of her TV specials that she won all of her Emmys for, so I got to do every single one of her characters. And we even did a Saturday Night Live, which was really funny because we did all these characters, and then she does this one character who's like a black lounge singer, which I'm sure she couldn't even do now, but she kind of looked like Smokey Robinson, right? So they said, "Oh, you have the most time of all to do that character." And I'm thinking, geez, yeah, I get to turn her into a black man. I said, "Well, how much time do you have?" "Oh, you have 3.5 minutes." And I went, "Oh, wow." I can't believe I actually did it. It was the fastest makeup job I ever did on her.
So your titles are many: makeup artist, special effects makeup, supervisor, key makeup artist. What are the differences in some of these terms?
You know, I don't know that there's a lot of, well, there are differences, but I think everybody kind of moves all those titles around. And basically, I was always what I call the department head, which means I did everything. I supervised everybody, I hired everybody. I picked and chose what makeup artists would do what characters, to see who was best suited for the job. So it's all kind of the same thing. They just randomly pick out different names to call people different things, which I've never totally figured out.
So you worked on a little TV show, The 18.
Another biggie.
Talk about working on that one, and what's the major differences between working on a TV show compared to a film?
Well, I think TV show schedules now are really brutal. They aren't like they used to be. When we were doing the 18, fortunately for me, most of that was shot outdoors, and George Picard went home at 5 o'clock every day. So the fact that I was doing his makeup and he was always in some sort of prosthetic, so my days were relatively short. I was never trapped in a movie studio because a lot of those TV shows you're like stuck on a stage, a dark stage all day long. But we were always outside, so it was actually a fun show to work. It really was. I mean, we must have shot 1,000 people and not one person ever died. I never used one drop of blood on that show. So.
Did you interact with Mr. T at all?
I did. Yes, Mr. T's. My interaction with Mr. T would be, "Bring me my booger tissue." That was my interaction with him. And I did pick him up and carry him from spot to spot every once in a while. But I didn't know where I wanted him to go. Probably my back's messed up.
Okay, so back on the horror train, The Lost Boys. It really seems that film created almost a new look for vampires.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. So talk about coming up with a new look for an older character.
Well, when I had done a movie with a couple of films with Joel Schumacher, who I adored, and Joel said, "Well, we're going to hire Steve Johnson to do the vampires," and I said, "No, please don't hire Steve. He said they're gonna come out like monsters. They can't be monsters. We want them to be like beautiful dark angels. We want them to be scary and sexy and yummy, and we want everybody to be in love with them and want to be with them and be like them. And I said, you'll just get a monster if we do Steve Johnson. And I love Steve Johnson. He's amazing. But it just wasn't my idea for that. It's not Joel's idea. And he said, okay, well, we'll do this. We'll do a test makeup with, he said, who do you want to do the prosthetics? And I said, I want my friend Greg Cannon to do it. So he says, okay, well, so you and Greg come up with something, and I'll let Steve Johnson and his people come up with something. You guys both do a test makeup, same day, different rooms, blah, 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 and we'll see what happens. And of course, Steve's looked just like Fright Night, so, because he had already done Fright Night, and it was just very reminiscent of that whole creepy, scary, wasn't my vision at all, and I don't think it was Joel's vision either. So, when we did our character, he said, oh yeah, I get it. I said, okay, thank you. So, we actually did the test makeup on Brooke, and it was a little bit more exaggerated than the ones we finally used in the film. We toned it down quite a bit, made it more streamlined, and some of them had a little bit slightly different design on each one of them according to their character look. But yeah, it was fun, and it was like really, they were relatively simple makeups, but they were done specifically like that so that they could be streamlined and pretty and but scary and all of the above.
Exactly, they were scary but pretty, so
Yeah.
that was the great part about it. So the next film I'd like to talk about is Beetlejuice. So it's your first Oscar.
Yeah.
Now, how does that work? You have Michael Keaton in the seat. Do you have an idea of the design as a sort of a collaboration with Tim?
Well, Tim's characters were all a collaboration. Tim has a very specific style, which if you've looked at my films, all the films I do that I've done for him all resemble each other, the makeups. And because of the fact that Tim is an artist himself, he would always do sketches of the characters. And when I first went in to go meet with Tim, there was sketches of this guy that looked like a derelict, digging through trash cans. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, and I didn't pay much attention to it. And so, cut to, we're doing test makeups. We're shooting the film already, and we're doing test makeups for Beetlejuice. And we're starting to get into the afterlife stuff, because if you think about it, it's really funny, because Michael Keaton only worked on that movie for 2.5 weeks, because all of his stuff was shot not with living people, except for 2 scenes. So when you see him in the film, he's not really with other people. He's by himself most of the time, or he's got those 2 scenes with the living. So all of his stuff was done in 2.5 weeks, and we had already started shooting. So anyway, I said, so Tim, what are we gonna do? I said, do we want him to look like the rest of the people in the afterlife? They're all supposed to be coming from the same place. And he goes, well, I don't really want him to be colorful like that. And I said, well, let me go. He said, that picture of the guy over there is the one I kind of think he looks like. And I said, like a derelict, kind of? And he says, well, kind of. He says, I want him to be a little bit different from the other people. He says, I want him to be a little bit scarier. I went, okay. So Michael came in, and I did test makeup of him, and basically made him look like this sketch of this derelict guy that was going through trash cans with the little dark circles around his eyes. He looked kind of like a degenerate, And I took him back to Tim, and Tim goes, oh no, that's too scary. We don't even want to look at him. And I said, okay, well, let me modify it a little bit. So I went back and did something else. Still too much. I said, okay. I said, can I just take him back and do what I want to do? And he goes, yeah, go do whatever you want to do. So I said, well, I still think he needs to resemble the other people in the afterlife, who I already did all the test makeups for all the colorations. And I said, but we're going to make him really pale yellow. And I said, I want him to look like my friend, who was also my assistant on that, Steve Laporte. I said, I want him to look like he crawled out from underneath a rock, because we dig him up, and he's whatever. So he says, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, let's send somebody off to a hobby store. And he goes, what do you want? I said, I want some crushed foam. And he goes, what? And I said, that crushed foam like they use on the, to do landscaping and stuff. So I sent somebody off, and we got 3 different colors and 3 different textures of crushed foam and some moss in a bag. And I said, let's just start making them up. Let's make them real pale yellow. And I did the dark circles around his eyes with brown and purple. It wasn't black. And I figured out where the wig was sitting on his head, and then I started painting stuff that looked like weird squiggly stuff growing out from underneath everywhere. And I started sticking the foam to it and blowing it off and dusting it, and then sticking bigger foam on to give it depth. And we took him back to, I took pictures of it. I wasn't even taking him to see Tim, I just took pictures of it. And Tim went, oh my God, that's great. Okay, that's good, let's do that. So we refined it. And Michael said, he said, I should have teeth. And I said, yeah, so Steve made him teeth. We had no budget, by the way. And I said, Steve, do you have, and Michael said, I really don't want to use my nose. Do you have a broken nose? Can I have a broken nose? And I said, Steve, do you have any broken noses, like stuff laying around at home that we can use? Have you done a broken nose on anything? And he says, no, but I have some swollen lips. And I said, okay, so we actually used for the whole film, we used a pair of swollen lips. One went on this side of his nose and the other went on this side of the nose, and it just gave him a broken nose. So he never had his own prosthetics. We did make him, and every day we made a bald cap to put on him. We made it, we didn't buy him, we made him. And we just over-dyed that wig about 10 times till we got that nasty color, it started off kind of a platinum colored wig, and when we were done it was kind of a pale yellow with green swirling through it and really dirty looking roots. So he was nasty. He came out looking pretty nasty. It's hard to tell because he's in like a lot of different colored lights and in the dark half the movie, but if you saw him in person, he was really quite fun in person. Like that. But that's kind of how we came up with Beetlejuice. Was that the question you asked me? Oh, okay. Sometimes I get off on a tangent, I forget. Sorry.
It sounds like a lot of your job is sort of being a MacGyver.
Oh yeah, if you don't have any money, you are definitely a MacGyver. Yeah, you gotta figure it out, by hook or by crook.
So how long did the Beetlejuice makeup take?
I think it took us about 2 hours to get him ready. It was probably that long because of the bald cap,
Right. Was he okay? I interviewed a lot of celebrities as far as in the horror genre. A lot of them complain about the makeup.
Well, I've done so many makeups throughout my career that I really realized that there's really a limit to how long an actor will sit in your chair and be comfortable with it. And usually, it's right about the 2 hour mark that they start getting real. I have to get out of here, So I've tried to work it out so that most of my makeup jobs are within that 2 hour period, unless of course you've got somebody in a big creature suit and they know ahead of time they're going into it, stuff like that. But it's like I did that Two-Face makeup on Tommy Lee Jones, who really didn't want to sit still. And I had just done a movie with him right before that, and Joel Schumacher, who also directed that, said to me, he says, gee, I hope you get along with Tommy, because I'm going to ask him to be the bad guy in the next movie. And I went, because this movie that I went to go do with Tommy Lee Jones was called Cobb, which was about Ty Cobb, the baseball player. And the reason I was on that movie was because a friend of mine kind of got fired or quit. I wasn't really clear on what happened, but I guess he and Tommy did not get along at all. And we're talking about Kevin Haney, who was like a really amazing makeup artist. And I was like, wow, okay. I always get these jobs where these guys quit and say, oh, give him to V. She can do anybody. And I'm, oh, goody, thank you. So we went in there, and here comes Mr. Crab. He sits in my chair, and he looks at me, and I had John Blake with me then, was my assistant. And he looks at me, he goes like this. He goes, you have 1 hour to make me look 80 years old. I said, well, without missing a beat, I said, I tell you what, Tommy, we'll see how old you look in an hour. How's that? Then he goes, He sits back. And we did it. And then we did it like in an hour and 10 minutes because I had figured it out with John. I said, we want this guy in and out of this chair as fast as possible. Now we're talking about doing an old age makeup on a guy who's not old, who has kind of crummy skin, so it was kind of good to begin with. But it was all stretch and stipple throughout his whole face. We had to shave his head, put a wig on him, and paint it all. And I said, we're only going to make 3 spots that we ever have to match on his face. The rest of it's going to be all modeling and just, kind of speckly age stuff that you can't really, nothing's defined. And so after we did it, he looks in the mirror and he goes, looks pretty good. He says, now you're fucked. And I said, what? I said, why? He goes, you have to do it that fast every time. And I said, dude, this is the first time we did it. We'll probably get faster. And he was fine from then on. He was one of those kind of guys that as long as you didn't crack or like show weakness, you were fine, but boy, the minute you showed weakness, he started going crying. And he wound up making the little wardrobe girl cry in the movie and everything. I went, oh Christ. And I thought, Jesus, I gotta spend a movie with him putting a big old makeup job on him. And funny enough, between Cobb and Batman, the Oscar time came up, and Tommy was nominated for The Fugitive, and I was nominated for, which one was I nominated for that year? Might have been Beetlejuice or Mrs. Doubtfire, I can't remember. Anyway, so I was at the Oscars, Tommy was at the Oscars, and they gave Best Supporting Oscar away before they gave makeup, right before they gave the makeup artist away. So Tommy won, and he was backstage, and then we won, and we were backstage. And I just happened to pop in the room and look, and Tommy was in there being interviewed, and he goes, "Get in here, Reed!" I went, oh my God. So I go in and he goes, "She did this to me," because he was shaved. He had like his whole top of his head was shaved, and all he had was a ring around the back. So I was putting on, "She did this for me, to me for a movie." And he was going on. And he was kissing me and hugging me, and I'm going, "Who the hell is this?" And so then we went on to do, we had to go back on the set to shoot a little bit more. And I said, Tommy, I said, it's not going to be an hour makeup job when we go on to Batman. He goes, "That's all right." I said, "Well, why is it all right?" Because they're paying me a lot of money to do that stuff. So I said, "Okay, well, be prepared. You're going to be in that chair for at least 2 hours." And he goes, "Okay." I warned him ahead of time because I didn't want any kind of blowback from him, but he loved me, so he never messed with me. I thought, geez, but it's like, as long as you stood up for yourself and you had enough, confidence that you were good at what you did and you could carry it off, he, appreciated that, and he respected you for that. But he could be a toughie. And I just worked with him just a few years ago, and he's a little bit older, but he's a lot older now, and he's actually mellowed out quite a bit. And he was so happy to see me because he would ask for me over the years for movies, and I go, "Oh no, I'm busy." And I finally pushed him off onto Michael Westmore, who he really liked, because of course Michael Westmore's famous, and he liked that. But I just kind of avoided working with him again, because he didn't bother me, but I just didn't like the way he treated other people, But on this last movie I did with him, he was really happy to see me.
What was Pittsburgh's own Michael Keaton like?
Michael was fantastic. He was really great. He was wonderful to work with.
It's an obvious question, but what was it like winning your first Oscar?
Well, I tell you what, I won for Beetlejuice, and we didn't think we were going to win, because we were up against Rick Baker for Coming to America, which was amazing. And I know those makeups were like phenomenal, because I actually went and helped Rick out for a few days on the film when they were shooting, so I got to see him firsthand, and they were just stunning. They were so beautiful. And anyway, we won, and I was bloody shocked. And we had all memorized a little portion of our speech, because you get 45 seconds, right? And you go. The coolest part about getting nominated for an Oscar is they have an Academy luncheon ahead of time where all the nominees go. So nobody's a winner at this point. Everybody's nominated, and they mix the tables up. So you'll sit with the director and an actor and maybe a sound guy, or some wardrobe or whatever. Everybody's all mixed up, and everybody's there just having a good time because you're all nominees and it's exciting and yada yada. And they say, "Okay, now when they call your name, don't saunter up there like it's no big deal. You are excited to win this Oscar. You want run up there and get that darn thing. And when you get up there, there's going to be a big screen, like the size of this back wall there, and it's going to tell you, it's going to start flashing numbers when your time is going down and blah 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 and this that and the other." And I got up there, and I kid you not, I didn't see anything. It was all white light. As far as I could tell, it was just white light. I was so elated. It was like the highest I've ever been in my entire life. And I finally got backstage with Steve Laporte, and I looked at him, and I was like, I had a hold of his lapels on his tuxedo when we were jumping up and down in this little elevator. And I stopped, and I said, "Did you see the screen? They were talking about this." "I didn't see anything." I said, "I didn't see anything either," and I thought, so that's what it was like. And I said, if I ever get up here again, I'm gonna look for the screen.
Did you see it?
Oh, yes, I did. I thought, how the hell did I never see that? I was like, oh my God, you can see everybody down in the front rows, you can see all the movie stars down there and everything, and I'm going, geez, how did I not see any of this? It was like wild.
So, now that the second and third, did it become old hat, or was it still just a special?
Never old hat, you kidding me?
I didn't think so.
I've been nominated 8 times, and every time I went, it was like nerve-wracking and crazy. Actually, I only went 7 times, because one of those years I was nominated twice,
Oh, okay.
and I was the other 2 losers. I love saying that. I lost to a really fabulous film, though. It was to Bram Stoker's Dracula, from my friend. And it was funny, is Greg Cannon was also nominated with me for one of the other movies as well. So he had 2 nominations, and I did too, but I was on Batman and he was on Dracula, so
Oh, okay.
anyway.
So we know at the beginning, you put all the makeup on the actor. Now, what do you do during the production, the shooting?
Well, during production, once you get everybody made up, you go to the set and you watch them, and if you're lucky, you'll get to have a monitor close by so you can see what the shots are. And it used to be when we never had monitors, you just had to kind of find a place to hide and try to figure it out, make sure you can keep an eye on your actor and try not to go up every single take and mess with them, because, I look at it this way, my work is done in the trailer, and once I get to the set, yes, I have to keep an eye on them and I have to watch them closely. But, some people are really nervous and they think that if they're not up there touching them every second that they're not doing their job. It's not the case. You let them get to the set, you let them do their work, and you keep an eye on them, and you only go up and touch them if you have to. And I always tell the actors, I say, once you leave this room, I will keep an eye on you. I will make sure I can see everything. I'll look at the monitor. I say, but I will not come up and mess with you unless I think something's wrong. And I just want you to know you'll always be able to see me on the set. So if you need something, you just ask for me. But I said, I won't come up and poke at you every take, because when you get out there, that's your time to be. That's your time to work. My time to work is now, unless I need to touch you.
Right. So you've worked with some of the who's who of Hollywood, and you were special character makeup artist on Dick Tracy.
Yes.
Literally an all-star cast.
Yes, they won the Oscar that year as well.
Who do you remember working on specifically?
Well, I did Al Pacino, so, yeah.
What was he like?
He was fantastic. Al was wonderful. It was funny, one morning I was making him up, and he would come in and he would literally just kind of go to sleep, while I was making him up. And this one morning I was doing him and I was poking around his nose, and he kind of went like, his head went back a little bit, and then his head went down like this, and my brush went right up his and he went, I said, I'm sorry, Al. He said, I fell asleep, didn't I? I said, well, you kind of went down my brush. I'm so sorry. I blew up. It was gnarly. Oh, he was really a nice guy. I remember one night I was cleaning him up, and it's funny. It's like he comes in, he's this handsome, Italian man, and he leaves as this nasty character, big boy, and I was looking at it. I cleaned him up one day and I combed his hair back and stuff, and I said, I forget how handsome you are when I put that makeup on you. And he was laughing at me. I said, God, I'm so sorry, Al. But he was adorable. He was nice.
So getting back to Tim Burton a little bit, in 1990 you worked on Edward Scissorhands with him. What's he like to work with? He just seems like such a perfectionist. Is that,
Tim?
Yeah, is that the way he is?
Yeah, I don't know if you call it perfectionist. He definitely knows what he wants, and he gets it out of everybody, and that's really good. And I think people enjoy, I don't know, I kind of believe that the makeup artist is the director's tool. And I know a lot of makeup artists think they're the star of the show. I won't name names. But I feel that you help the director bring their vision to life with your characters that you do for them. So for me, if a director wants something, you do your best and your damnedest to give them exactly what they want, because that's what you're there for. You're not there to make yourself a star. You're there to make the movie star a star. You're there to bring the character to life, to give the vision that the director wants. So Tim is, he's very verbal about it. If he doesn't like something, he'll tell you, and he's very good at telling you what he wants and what he needs. A lot of directors sometimes, I won't say a lot, but I've worked with directors that can't really pinpoint what they need. They go, well, kind of like. So I started putting boards together so that, because a lot of times if they don't have vision, you put like a vision board together for them of things that they kind of are talking about that they can't quite put their finger on, and you say, okay, what do you and what don't you like? And that really helps them narrow it down so that you can find out what their vision is, because when they can't tell you, you have to get it out of them somehow or another. But Tim, you don't have to do that. He's very good at describing exactly what he wants, and once you work with him a couple of times, you know how quirky he is, and you've seen his art, and you kind of know where he's coming from, so he's a lot easier to read than a lot of people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with his artistic background, does that make it a little easier to work with, say, a director that doesn't have?
Yeah, and like I said, some directors are very good at being able to visualize what they want, and they can give you some instances, or they can say, look, it should look like such and such, or this, whatever. But sometimes they just don't know, so you give them choices.
So I want to move on to a film, one of my favorite films, and that's Batman Returns, and your makeup work on Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Talk about coming up with that concept.
Well, now you have to remember, I don't make the prosthetics, and Tim does design these characters basically, and I work with Stan Winston Studios on that. So Stan Winston, his guys sculpted the pieces, and then I did all the test makeups. So basically, I'll get the foam latex, I'll just get this white piece of foam rubber, and I'll get an actor and they'll say, okay, go for it, So I know Tim's aesthetic, so I just, start like, that's what I do. I put it on him and I start painting, and I said, I think this is what he wants. And he goes, yeah, that's good, yeah, that's what he likes. And I went, okay, perfect. And we kind of just honed it down from there,
Did they do the prosthetic company do the teeth as well?
They did the teeth from as well, yeah, that was Dan Winston Studios.
They did an amazing job
Yeah.
as well as you did too. I noticed that you were Danny DeVito's makeup artist again on Twins. Was that another thing where he requested you?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
That's great. That's gotta make you feel good when these.
Actually, it was Junior, it wasn't Twins.
Junior, I'm sorry.
That's okay, but it's the same thing, basically. Same guys, just different movie.
So 93 and 94 were pretty big years for you, Mrs. Doubtfire and Ed Wood. So I guess we can talk about Mrs. Doubtfire first. How did you get involved in
Well, that was also Greg Cannon. So when Greg got the job, he said, you want to go do this, because of the fact that Greg had a makeup lab, he also was doing other projects. So, once he gets a project done, he would hand it off to a makeup artist. And everybody used to say to me, well, Ve, why don't you have your own lab? Why aren't you doing your own stuff? I said, I don't want all that headache. I just want to put it on. That's what I'm good at. I'm good with being with the actors. I'm good with directors and everybody. I like being on the set. I hate being in a lab. I did it for 3 years when I started. I said, I want to know how everything's done, and I want to keep up on all the latest technology, but I don't want to be in there doing that. So anyway, cut to, I was working with Greg Cannon again, and Greg came and he did the first test makeup with me for Mrs. Doubtfire, and he looked like an old man. I said, Greg, no, this can't be Mrs. Doubtfire. He looks like a nasty fat old man. And he says, yeah, he does kind of look like a man. I said, why don't you just go back home and let me do the next test by myself? So I did the next test by myself, and I created the look for Mrs. Doubtfire, because I said he has to look like a guy that's doing this to himself, number one, but it has to look like a sweet old lady. Has to look like a sweet old lady that has a little makeup on and some rouge and a little lipstick, but it has to be simple enough but believable enough that he can be walking around in it. So I just said, let me just work this out myself, and I'll do it. And that's how we came up with Mrs. Doubtfire. He sculpted everything, and then I did the paint job.
So when you're on set and you're seeing, your creation and what you've collaborated on come to life by these actors, Robin Williams, one of the best. What was it like watching him bring this to life?
Robin was fantastic, and the first couple of times I did it, he would start getting antsy and start talking to people and doing stuff, and I said, Robin, I'm never going to get you out of this chair if you don't sit still. And he goes, yeah, I know, because the first time we did it took 4 hours, and I said, this is not going to work. I said, we got to do it. It's got to be under 2 hours. We got to figure this out. And so I had Stefan Dupuy with me, help me on that. And what we did was, I took the doors off the cabinets behind me, and I put a monitor up at the cabinet behind me. So when Robin was sitting in the chair, we had him watching movies. And Robin had never seen a lot of the classic films from he hadn't seen a lot of movies, period. So we started showing him all the classic films, like real classics, like Citizen Kane, and, all the oldies and some of the contemporary ones that he had never seen. And he saw a lot of movies because I put him in that makeup 54 times. So he did get to see a lot of movies.
So you have a decent background with Batman.
Mhm.
What was your thoughts on the job they did on Colin Farrell to turn him into the Penguin for the Batman?
Well, Mike Marino's an incredible makeup artist, number one. He can do anything as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he's right on Rick Baker's heels. I mean, he's amazing. And I did like the take on it because it's like a more believable type of it's like a human being.
Right.
And I think it was really interesting, and especially for the way these Batman films have evolved. They're more humanistic and they're a little darker, and all the characters are more lifelike. And I think it's an amazing, I think he did an amazing job.
Can't even tell what's happening.
No, he's unrecognizable.
So what characters did you all work on Ed Wood? Everybody?
I did Johnny, and then I handed him off because I was doing Martin, so it was kind of difficult. But I did Martin, I did Elvira, I did Thor. So I did. That Thor makeup was really hard to do because you can't. Or Tor is his name. It had to be bad. It had to be like the movie where you could see the whole thing all the way around it. So I just got like really bad prosthetics and ones that were like we could just pour up, rubber ones, not even foam. They were rubber, and we just stuck them on him and painted them up and stuff. I got, God, I can't put this out there. It just it hurts me to look at it. But we did it because it had to look like the crummy movies the guy made,
Right.
But it was fun.
So you then started to work on Pirates of the Caribbean. At this point, are you and Johnny Depp just kind of friends? Do you know each other?
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't do a lot. I've only done probably 5 or 6 movies with Johnny. He had a makeup artist that did a lot of his other films, but usually when he had something specific or something different that he wanted to do, he would always call me.
Okay.
So that was kind of neat. And I think probably because we had worked so much in that short period of time, I was doing those films with him. And I can't remember what we were on that we were talking about Pirates, but we talked about it ahead of time because he was saying he wanted this, that, and the other in his hair. And I said, well, I have this incredible collection of beads, trade beads, and all kinds of cool trinkets and stuff that I've been collecting for years because I used to make treasure necklaces. And I said, I could come up with some really cool stuff to stick in your hair and make beads. So I made all that stuff in his hair.
Oh, that's right.
And we just, I stuck it in the, Martin, the hairdresser, and I just worked on it together. Wove it all, sewed it into his wig and did all that. He had a little hole in his beard down here. I said, let's just give you like a weird sore here that nobody really knows what it is. We'll just call it syphilis.
What's it like working on it? I imagine that being just a huge production.
Oh, it was huge, yeah.
What's it like working on that? And do you prefer smaller or do you like the bigger?
I really enjoy working on big films, or I used to anyway. I'm retired now, but I love doing the pirate films. And I mean, at almost at any point on that movie, I had 50 makeup artists working with me. That was just the makeup. We also had 50 hairdressers because almost every one of those guys had a wig on. And then it started getting cut down. The hairdressers got down to 35 because some of them, we didn't need it. But it came to the point where I was carrying like a mobile lab with me because we had to do so much stuff on the fly and we were so far away that it was impossible to get anything to go with us. So Joel Harlow was my assistant during that time. I had Joel running the lab for us. And then Joel ran my lab and he made a lot of the prosthetics for Pirates as well. And did bootstrap build. But we also had a tooth guy with us because any time that we had, I said, if any one of these guys works on the movie for more than 2 days, he's getting teeth made. Because what we did was we made these plastic veneers that could slip over their teeth so we didn't have to paint their teeth because they all had rotten teeth. And to paint their teeth was a misery because they always were eating something and then the shit had come off and paint their mouths. And I said, no, we're not doing that. So we made those plastic teeth for everybody. Can you guys hear me all right? I don't need to talk like this. But Yeah, and it was huge, and we were on the island, so we were far away, we couldn't,
Had to use what you had.
yeah.
So you were department makeup head for Constantine.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves.
Mhm.
Who did you work with on there? Did you work with the actor that played Satan? Did you have
I did, yeah.
I think his name is Peter
Peter
Stormare.
Stormare, yeah, Peter Stormare, yes. And we had tattoos made for him that like creeped us out from underneath his neck and his hands.
Right. And obviously, did you work on?
Cat.
Was he?
Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah, he seems to play the perfect bad guy in
Yeah,
almost
he
any
does.
situation.
Yeah, he was nice though. I mean, it's funny, it's like all these guys that play these mean bad guys are always usually the big puppy dogs, you know, they're just like sweethearts.
And Keanu has it. Did you work with him?
I did
And
Keanu.
he has such a reputation of being just a humble, amazing human.
He is actually a really quiet, really sweet man, and, you know, I don't think acting comes easy to him. He really has to work at it, and I would always see him over in a corner running his lines by himself, you know, just really like struggling, you know, and I thought, wow, and it looks so easy when he does it. Like, he really works at it to perfect it, because I don't, you know, some people are just naturals that can turn it off and on, like Johnny and like Jennifer Lawrence on Hunger Games. I mean, she could just turn it off and on. She'd be goofing around and playing jokes and pinching people and doing crazy stuff and laughing and screaming, and then she'd turn around and go on set and start crying. And I'm thinking, how do you do that, girl? Good God. She was just, you know, amazing. She could just turn it on and off and be perfect every time.
That's why she gets paid the big bucks.
That's right.
So of all the films you worked on, is there one that sticks out as maybe the most challenging, or perhaps the one you're most proud of?
You know, I'm kind of proud of everything I've done, and all for a different reason, you know, because I got to do so many different projects that all entailed a different type of makeup in each one, but not anything that I couldn't say I was more proud of than the next, because I figured I always did the best job I could do, and so that, I don't think that comes into play. I think most challenging might have been Mrs. Doubtfire, just trying to get those pieces on, because it was like 9 or 10 overlapping pieces, and if I didn't get them on him every day in exactly the right spot, and all those little pieces weren't overlapping, and it was usually around his mouth, he would start sweating, and little things of sweat would start shooting out holes that would glue down, and I said, oh my God, and so I learned. So it's like there was no nights out before doing that makeup, too much wine, because if I came in even like off that day, I mean, I'd get up and do yoga every morning before I went to work, because I had to get that makeup on in 2 hours every day. And it had to be perfect, and I couldn't have any spots, and everything had to be like within centimeters. It was, because all those little pieces, the last piece that went on was, I think it was his lower lip, and if all that stuff didn't just cover all these other 3 pieces that met up here, and I had that sweat popping out all day long, I was chasing it. It was like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. So that was probably the most challenging. But fun, I didn't care.
I got 2 questions left from me, and then we'll take it to the audience here. You were a judge on the TV show Face Off. How did you get involved in that? It lasted a long time.
It did, yeah. I can't remember exactly how I got called for it. I don't remember if my agent called me or if a friend, possibly. And I went in for an interview, and they liked me, and they called me back, and then they said, well, we're looking for 2 other guys, and we need somebody that runs a studio. And I said, well, you should try, there's this guy that's kind of crazy looking that might be kind of fun, you know, for the thing, which was Glenn. And then we had Patrick, and I'm not sure, then Patrick had to take off. Wasn't Patrick our first one? Yeah, Patrick Totopoulos. And then we had, oh my goodness, tall, great, oh goodness. Who was our 3rd judge? I'm drawing a blank. Huh? Oh, Neville, yes, sorry, Neville Page. I don't know, how could I forget you, Neville? Jeez, please. I mean, your face is in my head, I just couldn't think of his name for a moment. But it was really fun, and I'm not really sure how I got that job, other than the fact that they needed to have a woman, and they needed somebody with credentials, and that was me. So I got the job, and it was really fun, and I had a blast doing it. I'm really sorry the show's not on anymore. And it doesn't matter how many people call up Syfy Channel and how many petitions they put together, the assholes will not do the show. And Mackenzie and I tried to buy it off them, they won't even sell it. They're
They're running reruns.
Why are there so many production companies that don't listen to?
And they don't have to pay, residuals or anything, because even though we were all SAG, we weren't under SAG contract, so they didn't have to do that either.
So last question for me, you said you were retired. Is there anyone that could call you and say, I need your help, that would make you unretired?
Anybody that's doing a Western with somebody that I like. That's the only thing that's gonna get me up at 4 o'clock in the morning again.
You see Westerns ever coming back?
There's a whole string of them being made right now. I mean, they're kind of coming back. I mean, not like the old fashioned ones, but
Right.
the new, yeah, there's Westerns, like, they pop up all the time now. There's like a string of them. I mean,
Yeah, it's good to see you. For a while there was nothing.
yeah.
It was Tombstone and then it just kind of
Yeah.
dried up. Yeah. So who has a question for me out in the audience?
So V, what got you into this? I mean, as a young girl, did you do makeup in high school in the high school plays, or what?
I did, and funny you should mention that, because my high school alma mater called me the other day and they said, we heard you're retired, do you want to come and do anything at the school? Actually, I called them up and offered my services, and I said, hey, I've got all this equipment and makeup, I said, I need to get donated somewhere. And I said, are you guys interested? And they said, well, what about you? And I said, what do you mean me? And they said, well, would you come and donate your time? We're doing Mamma Mia this year. They said, we did Shrek, but we didn't know you were available. I said, well, maybe if I'm not working, I can maybe come down. And then, of course, Sean, you're going to book me that weekend, aren't you? So I don't want to go.
Yeah, I will say your book.
But yeah, I did it in high school, yeah. But you know, when I started, I was always told that I couldn't do it because I was a woman, because back then only men were makeup artists. Women were body makeup, women were hairstylists, but we weren't makeup artists. In fact, I was one of the first black women that got into the union.
So pretty much all of us all right here, we go to Thompson Union Special Effects Makeup School, and you know most of the stuff that we get from him is coming from somebody whose biggest movies were back in the 80s and time period. So from somebody who has done more modern movies, what is like the really important thing you do to get into it?
Okay, that's a really broad question.
Okay,
Get
so-
into it. How do you mean, like get into doing your makeup properly, or get into?
Kind of like what's like a good way to kind of get your stuff out there and get people to
Well,
want to
first
hire
of
you?
all, I don't know what Tom's curriculum is because I don't know what they teach anymore. I haven't looked at, wasn't interested. But, I know Tom's, big thing is like all these horror movies and slasher movies and stuff, and that's really great if that's all you ever want to do. But if you want to really learn how to do makeup, you want to learn how to do people that look real. So if you want to work in the film, you've got to learn how to make people look real. So that's your first thing. Don't waste your time doing a bunch of creature stuff because, yeah, creatures are great and you can do them eventually, but if you want to work all the time, you have to work on human beings. So try to really hone your skills on doing prosthetics that are like for, like broken noses or swollen eyes or, injury type stuff where you can really, where it's really useful, stuff that's used all the time, whether you're doing TV or film. So, or character work if you want to change somebody, like, to be like a totally different person. So learn how to paint. First of all, make sure you get color theory, learn how to paint, learn how to do hair work. That's really important because there's a lot of period films being made, so you have to learn how to do hair work. Whether you're doing hair work with like laying hair or you're using lace pieces or anything like that, but that's my first and foremost. And never turn down a job. That's my advice, never turn down a job, because what are you going to do, sit at home and look at each other? Who cares? I mean, if you go out and you're doing it for free, it doesn't matter because you have to get experience. That's the number one thing. You want to get experience immediately. And if that means going to work on a job for free, I get it. Everybody does it when they're starting out. Don't pay to go work on it. Don't make it cost you money. Just say, hey, yeah, I'll come and do it, but you got to pay for my stuff. You can have me for free, but the stuff is not free, because they will take advantage of you. But you want to get that experience. You want to be out there on a set. You want to learn what everybody does. You want to see how it all works, how people work together. Who do you have to work with? You want to talk with your director. You want to be in cahoots with the wardrobe people, you gotta learn how to work with a hairstylist, you gotta learn how to work together and, be respectful of each other's crafts and don't backstab each other, because you know what goes around comes around, baby. I mean, and you know what, if you're going up the ladder, all it takes is one broken run from somebody that you like was badass to, you're going down, so, treat each other with respect and be kind to each other and help each other, help each other get jobs, because you're gonna need a job one day and they might help you get a job,
There you go, time for one.
Face off. It's just kind of scary stuff. I do that.
I never had a problem with Glenn. I think it was all a facade. I mean, they never, they edited out him laughing most of the time, but he was always laughing. And I really liked making him laugh. So, way into that?
It was also a Glenn-related question. Was there ever a day that one of his outfits or facial hairstyles just kind of made you chuckle a little bit? Because it's so
Every
over.
person.
So, I've always wondered that.
There was somebody in the middle real quick who had a question.
Is there anyone that you feel is just the greatest of all time, or maybe a few that you think were just the best in the business?
As far as what, actors or
Makeup artists.
Makeup artists? Well, I mean, it's your quintessential, obviously Dick Smith. I loved working with Stan Winston, although he may have not been a really fabulous makeup artist himself, but all of his stuff that he did was, and everybody he had working with him was. Rick Baker is the god of makeup now, that Dick's done. But I think, as I was saying, Mike Marino's coming right up on his heels. He's out of New York, and he's amazing. But I worked with this young man named Arian Chait in Los Angeles who's really amazing. And there's so many, I can't even name them all. I mean, gosh. So you ask me questions I can't answer now because I'm getting tired. There's a lot of really good up and coming makeup artists that are out there. But it's your quintessential, Rick Baker, what can I say? And Greg Cannon, of course, who I've worked with many times. He's fantastic as well.
Well, we thank you very much for taking some time. It's a true honor for me.
Thank you.
To share the stage.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Thank you very much.